One of the advantages to being young is you recover more quickly. You don't get wrinkles generally in your teens and your 20s. Got that youthful look, good energy in your 20s. There are a lot of advantages to being like 24. There are some advantages to being 30, 40, or 54. And that is that you've lived life, you've had experiences, and you won't make those dumb mistakes hopefully you make in your 20s and 30s. I can't tell you if you're 22 years old how the 30s and 40s are going to be. You're going to have to live them. So I'm going to bring in a little bit of wisdom that I have learned in my life. And it has to do with the Golden State Warriors and Kevin Durant. I never lead with basketball in the football season, but this is a very interesting moment. Is the Golden State Warriors have told Chris Mannix, a very good reporter behind the scenes, we are perplexed by Kevin Durant's offseason fighting his old battles. His shoe line, taking shots at his distractors, blasting his former organization on Twitter. Why is he going down that rabbit hole? They are perplexed by Kevin Durant. And you know what I say? I'm perplexed by the Golden State Warriors not getting Kevin Durant. You ever heard that old saying, you never forget your first love? You know when people experience their first love? Usually at 15 years old, maybe 14, maybe 16. And at 60 years old, you don't forget it. That's a 40, 50-year gap between your first love and now. That's why people go on Facebook, have affairs. Their high school sweetheart, they're in their 50s. It holds a special place. That's 45 and 50 years removed from high school. And you're wondering why Kevin Durant, who had the 10 best years of his life, then a public divorce, now he's America's villain, you're wondering why he can't get over it in 15 months? Excuse me, but did you ever see the story they did on Tom Brady? He had 3 Super Bowl rings, and they interviewed him about the draft, and he cried because he remembered the day he sat with his dad and watched the draft, and nobody took him. And at this point, his net worth was $250 million. He was married to a supermodel. He had 3 rings, and he cried. It still hurt. Aaron Rodgers had to go to a junior college. Only 6'2". USC wasn't interested. Either was Oklahoma, Texas, Michigan. It still burns. Of course, Kevin Durant, 15 months removed from the greatest 10 years of his life, the most public divorce in America, and now America's reigning villain, of course it's in his head. That's why I said yesterday he's the most fragile athlete in North America. He's the most fragile star. But for the Warriors to not get it, the Warriors are one of the smartest organizations in sports. I'd get the Sacramento Kings not getting it. The Warriors' owners are smart. Their GM is smart. Their coach is smart. Their players are smart. Steph Curry, the suburb kid, he's never had this public struggle. It's Klay Thompson, suburb kid, dad's a millionaire, never had this struggle. Kevin Durant, when he went to Washington, D.C., his hometown, first time as a Warrior, they cheered Steph and booed him. You don't think that didn't get into his head a little bit? I remember 2.5, 3 years ago. Actually, it was 2 years ago. A friend of mine, Ken Stickney, was driving me to the airport. And I had just gotten this job. And he was taking me to the airport. And he's like, man, he goes, I knew you 20 years ago, man. You've really done well. You need to buy yourself a big old nice car. And I said, no, it's not in me. And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, in your little field, you've done really well. And I'm like, man, I'm a divorced kid and I'm a poor kid. And that was like 30 years ago. And that will never, ever leave me. That's why I show up every day for 3 hours of prep. That doesn't go away, man. Being snubbed in high school by the pretty girl, it doesn't go away. It doesn't go away 40 years later. Aaron Rodgers, USC not interested, had to go to a junior college. Tom Brady, embarrassing, parents there, family, friends, dropped to the 6th round. That stuff doesn't go away. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Everybody watching my show, everybody listening to my show in America right now has a bad habit, has an insecurity, has a fear, all based on a little boy at 7 or a little girl at 9. And those stay with you despite therapy forever. So the smartest team in the NBA, the Golden State Warriors, where everybody, ball boys to owner, are really, really smart. With that Silicon Valley fan base, they may have the smartest fan base in North America. And you don't understand why Kevin Durant and his upbringing, if you go look to his upbringing, and all of a sudden, 10 years of growth with Russell, then America's most public divorce, he's 29 years old. Now he's America's villain. And you're like, how do you look in the rearview mirror? How do you not? How do you not? LeBron came back to Cleveland. He's a hero. But remember when LeBron left to Miami, how it got into LeBron's head. He came out and he said, man, I don't like it. I don't like being a villain. By the way, being a villain may sound cool, but even Simon Cowell and Howard Stern, after being a villain for 10 years, wanted to be likable. Howard Stern now talks about playing with kittens, plays chess, paints, hangs out with his wife, does charities. Can't be a villain forever. It erodes you emotionally and physically. Simon Cowell was the mean guy. Then he wanted to soften up and get off the show despite being offered a $100 million contract a year and a free Beverly Hills mansion. Kevin Durant, a kid. Kevin Durant, public growth, public divorce, public villain. Of course, it's still in his head. Michael Jordan was the greatest basketball player of all time. 10 years after Michael Jordan retired, he was still voted the most popular athlete in America. He makes more a year now on shoes than he ever did in his basketball career. And when he had his Hall of Fame speech, he ripped his high school coach for cutting him from the basketball team. That stuff never, ever leaves you, ever. And I'm not sure it's a bad thing. That probably drove Michael Jordan. It probably drives Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady. But if you don't get why Kevin Durant is sort of struggling with it, then you don't get Psychology 101. I'm perplexed the Warriors, the smartest franchise easily in the sport, don't get it. That's perplexing. This is easy. Everybody in that Warrior organization, everybody is elite. Nobody gets elite in this country without a stumble, a roadblock, an enemy, a chip on their shoulder. I don't care about your resume, and I don't care where your mommy and daddy took you to school. The great ones, you can go Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, here, late, deceased, current. Everybody's got a chip on their shoulder. You get there with attitude and resilience, and that resilience is formed of being burned and scorned and mocked. Of course, Kevin Durant's struggling with it. That's why I called him yesterday the most fragile athlete in America. Of course he is. He's 29. This would be our president's still bitter on Twitter, and he's almost 70. Of course. It's very human of Kevin Durant to be struggling with this. It's incredibly human, and we're all dealing with something.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd, or go watch a few segments from the newest show on FS1, First Things First, with Chris Carter and Nick Wright.